I'm gonna let you go first, man. You picked the Chiefs. Champ and I picked the Eagles. Um, Although we predicted that the Eagles would win, we did not expect a blowout. The floor is yours.
That was Super Bowl 55 all over again. That's what it was. It was the when I mean, and you've seen it in the Kansas City losses when they do lose. A good defensive line is like the kryptonite for Patrick Mahomes because he can't get in the rhythm, he can't find his spot, he can't create like he wants to create. And the Philadelphia Eagles just did an amazing job, basically just taking him out the game, hitting him. And honestly, I said it myself. The right team is not going to care about penalties. The right team's not going to be scared. The right team's not going to care about, oh, is the ref going to throw this flag? Is the ref going to throw this flag? I told you he was going to run into the right defense, and he ran into the right one. The Philadelphia Eagles didn't care about all that. They got after him, and that was really my key for them to win the game. They did exactly what I felt like they needed to do to win Super Bowl 59, which was attack from the first quarter to the fourth quarter and not let the foot off the gas. That's exactly what they did on offense and defense. Um, I really thought either Milton Williams or Josh Sweat was going to have an awesome opportunity to win Super Bowl MVP. But as soon as Jalen Hurts dropped that breadbasket, gorgeous dot of a throw on Devontae Smith to get that touchdown, I was like, yeah, Super Bowl MVP's a wrap. Jalen Hurts got this on lock because he was efficient. Outside of really that one interception he threw, trying to get it to the red zone, outside of that one throw, he was practically flawless. He played an amazing game. I mean, he picked the right time to play possibly the two best games of his career. That NFC championship against Washington and the Super Bowl against KC. Arguably two of the greatest games of his career. I mean, he showed up and he showed out. I mean, nothing but respect. And I think he solidified as a top 10 quarterback in this league. I think he solidified himself with these performances. He's a champion, and you can't take that away from him. So many, I mean, I kind of doubted him a little bit. So many people doubted him, his ability to be consistent throwing the ball, his ability to be a true to the game quarterback, and he shut everybody up. And I think and I hope it really gives him confidence now and beyond going into the future. Knowing that he is one of the better quarterbacks in this league. I think it's solidified top 10 after this. Um, I d- it was honestly, it was one of those games where it's like you have a team every so often that just plays this game where it doesn't matter who they played, any team of any era. Honestly, it wouldn't have mattered. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles, I think, could have beaten anybody on that field on Sunday night, and it was just an amazing performance to behold. And as for the Chiefs, I mean, what do you mean? What can you say? You had no shot. Yeah, I mean, and then it's bad because the score ended up being 40-22. But that was garbage. I mean, I don't like throwing the words out of garbage time and stat padding, but that's exactly what that was. That's exactly what that was. Game wasn't even that close. At one point, that game was 40-6. Game was done in the third quarter. I mean, I feel like the key to that game for me was just the Philadelphia defense. I mean, that Philadelphia defense just gave their offense pristine field position and their ability with misdirection, their ability and shout out to AJ Brown. I mean, he lit up Trent McDuffie like a Christmas tree all game. Just shout out to AJ Brown. He lit him up. And Trent McDuffie, he's arguably the best corner in this league. Definitely, in my opinion, definitely top three. And AJ Brown lit him up. I mean, that was crazy to see. The Eagles were just on one on both sides of the ball, and
I
there
bet
was
that
nothing
book that
came.
AJ Brown was reading helped him.
Oh
The book he was
boy,
reading on the sideline.
whatever I am telling you, whatever type of focus that was putting him under, it worked because he tore Trent McDuffie's butt. He tore him up. And like I said, that was just a game where they were executing on both sides of the ball. They really didn't. They hardly made any mistakes. And it was like even when Kansas City couldn't when they did make plays, when they did get first downs, Philadelphia was able to just stop the snowball on their end. Kansas City Chiefs just couldn't stop the snowball on their end when it came to the Philadelphia Eagles. So the Philadelphia Eagles definitely they won that game. That wasn't about Kansas City making mistakes and just costing themselves. No, Philadelphia took it down after down after down. There was nothing the Philadelphia Eagles could not do in that game. The Kansas City Chiefs were just they were hopeless. They were hopeless from the word go. Hopeless from the word go. And and it was one of those where you're watching a game and you're like, okay, all right, when is Kansas City finally gonna when they gonna make that play? When they gonna step up? And it's like right when you think it may come, Cooper DeJean gets a pick six, or Milton Williams gets a sack, or Josh Sweat gets a sack, or Zach Bond gets another interception to give them great field position. I mean, just Philly was the better team. Philly was the better team. Like I said, it felt just like Super Bowl 55 all over again because even though every team, in my opinion, doesn't have like the roster or the physicality that the Philadelphia Eagles possess, teams look at that now and they're going to say, oh, if we could put a front four together that can get pressure on the Kansas City Chiefs, we can get them too. And I feel like Tampa Bay kind of showed that a little bit, and Philadelphia really laid that blueprint out again. If you can rush Kansas City with your front four, and not have to blitz, you could take them out the game. And interesting, and a stat that I saw, I don't know the other. I don't know the other five instances. I'll have to look it up. But this was the sixth time in Super Bowl history that a team called no blitzes, and those teams are 6-0 in those Super Bowls. So that I mean, and honestly, it makes sense when you can get pressure with your front four without having to blitz. That means you can leave more guys in coverage. You can run your defense the way you want to run and make the quarterback try to make throws he's usually not accustomed to making. Or in Patrick Mahomes' case, I mean, yeah, he can make all the throws, but you just have more guys in positions to make plays on the back end of the defense. So Philadelphia Eagles just dictated the tempo. They played exactly how I felt like they needed to play to win. They dictated the tempo. They dictated the pace. Kansas City couldn't do a thing about it. And at the end of the day, you saw the score. So shout out to the Eagles. They played a hell of a game, and nothing you can. And Kansas City has nothing really to like hang their heads about. They were dynasty 3 out of 4 Super Bowls. They really have nothing to hang their heads on. But at the end of the day, Philly was just better. Philly was just better. Just really that's pretty much how he laid it out. Philadelphia played a better game, and shout out to them. They deserve to be Super Bowl champions.
Undisputed world champ.
Oh man, that was how do I top that, man? The brilliant BRF man articulating best he know can, the best he can, bro. That's brilliant. I can't top that. That's amazing. You articulated the hell out of that, man. Good job, bro. Um, I can honestly say this, man. You know what that looks like? That defense looked like the steel curtain. And if you ever notice, everybody when he went back to pass, they all dropped back in the zone. That's the same thing the steel curtain used to do. That was the Tampa 2 at its finest. That was the Tampa 2 at its finest. And another team that did not call any blitzes during their Super Bowl was the New York Giants. Ironically, they didn't call any. They didn't call. They didn't call anyone when they played the Buffalo Bills. They did not call a single blitz, and I know that's kind of out of character for them, especially during that time. Back in 1990, because they had arguably the best pass rush of all time.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't blitz but two. They didn't rush but two people that entire game. The rest dropped back into coverage so they could stop the K gun offense. That was the other team that did that. That's the one I know off the head. But I know the Steel Curtain back in the 70s did the same thing. Honestly, like BRF said, man, you was waiting. It's kind of like you're going to a movie and you're waiting for the villain to kind of turn up. It's kind of like you're going to see a Batman movie. You waiting for Bane to kind of make a comeback on Batman, at least for a second. And it never happens for some reason. It's kind of like that second fight in Dark Knight Rises. And it's like, okay, he gonna bring it back in like a second, but Batman still just laying it on him. That's exactly what happened. And huge shout out, man. And like I said in another podcast, I'm not so sure if it was this from PSP. They benefited hugely from Brandon Graham coming back.
Yes, they did.
Brandon Graham coming back was a huge addition for the Philadelphia Eagles, man. And look, man, like I said, hey, shout out to Georgia, man. Shout out to Georgia, um, Nolan Smith, Jalen Carter, Joy Davis showed out in the Super Bowl. He even got a sack in the Super Bowl. So those Georgia Dogs really went out there and showed out. So I am happy for the Philadelphia Eagles, man. And whatever narrative that anybody has against Jalen Hurts at this point, it's over. It's over. Stop. Here's my thing. Stop trying to punish good quarterbacks when they have good teams. That's what they're supposed to have. That's what they're supposed to have. There's been guys with plenty of teams that were built around them for years and didn't win Super Bowls. There's been plenty of guys. This year, Jared Goff had a good team around him. He didn't win a Super Bowl. He had a good team built around him for 2 to 3 years, for the last 2 to 3 years. He hasn't won a Super Bowl. Brock Purdy, I've been on record with saying that Brock Purdy has got the best team money can buy. And the funniest thing about it, they keep getting deeper. This year, they added Ricky Pearsall to the roster. He's going to be a darn good wide receiver. They already had Jefferson and Jennings on that team. Then he had Brandon Ayuk. Then he had already one of the best backs in the league. They didn't win a Super Bowl. They couldn't beat Patrick Mahomes and slay the dragon. So give Jalen Hurts what credit is due. Like I said on a video that I made on TikTok, Jalen Hurts has been winning since he was at Alabama. And then he left Alabama and was a Heisman Trophy candidate. People thought he was through. People said, oh, he can't throw. Oh, he can't do this. He can't do that. He led his team to the college football playoffs 3 separate times and was an instrumental part of getting Alabama to win that national championship in 2016 over my Georgia Bulldogs. Then the very next year, Tua gets hurt. He wins the SEC championship against us. So all that young man has done throughout his career, although he's counted out, is win. He's won. Then went to Lincoln Riley's offense and showed him, okay, y'all think this is all that I can do? I'm going to show you my arm. Now he's outdoing the guy who replaced him at Alabama. So all of this narrative that he just has a good team around him. No. When you have a great team around you, that's what you're supposed to have. That's what your general managers and the team is for, is to build a team around you that is capable of winning the Super Bowl. That's what they're supposed to do. That's what's supposed to happen. You're not supposed to have a quarterback that's pulling. You're not supposed to have a quarterback that is Dan Marino and his team every single year. You have no offense. You have no defense. It's just you is plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D. No, that's not the way it's supposed to be. That team was built to be great. And Jalen Hurts is the quarterback that helped them be great. Granted, he wasn't even supposed to be the starter. It was supposed to be Carson Wentz. It was supposed to be Carson Wentz. They drafted him in the later rounds.
Second round.
In the second round. He's supposed to be behind Carson Wentz. So, and when he couldn't come back, Jalen took over, and they've been winning ever since. Granted, they haven't won but one Super Bowl, but they've been to the Super Bowl. They've had a winning records. They've been to the playoffs every single year he's been there, and he's doing a darn good job. So stop with this narrative of he did what he was supposed to do. Did we say that when Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, although he was surrounded with Hall of Famers galore? Did we say that about him? Did we? No. We said good for him. He's finally solidified his spot. Because he had to slay the giant on his way to the Super Bowl. Then when he got there, he had to slay one of the greatest defenses in history. So when somebody goes and slays the dragon, don't give all of these other fairy tales about how he slayed the dragon. He went out there and slayed the dragon. And the fact of the matter is, he outpaid Patrick Mahomes in both Super Bowls. He just so happened to lose one of them. His record in the playoffs is better than Lamar Jackson's, better than Justin Herbert's, better than Joe Burrow, better than a lot of the top 3 quarterbacks that we call top 3 in the league. We call, we call, we call Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow. We call those the top four behind Patrick Mahomes. We call those the top four behind him. He has more playoff wins than every last one of them. Every last one of them. And each and every last one of them has had good teams around them. They couldn't win. Lamar Jackson couldn't win this year. One of the best offenses. Not only did Lamar Jackson have the best offense this year, most yards in NFL history, he had the best defense historically last year. The team had something sacks, broke the sack record, scoring record, and everything. He couldn't win with neither one of those teams. And that's not a knock on Lamar Jackson. That just goes to show people, okay, people have had good teams. They couldn't win with them. So let's cut out trying to discredit someone because it's just not your cup of tea. Because I believe that's all it is. It's Eagles hate. It's just Eagles hate. Because like I said, we've seen guys with great teams. We saw Lamar Jackson with great teams. We saw Joe Burrow with great teams. We saw Brock with great teams. Jared Goff with great teams. Neither one of those guys have won the Super Bowl and slayed Patrick Mahomes on the biggest stage ever. Nobody, only one person has beaten Patrick Mahomes on the biggest stage ever. That's the greatest of all time, Tom Brady. And not Jalen Hurts is a part of that elite competition. As far as Patrick Mahomes, you ain't got nothing to be ashamed of. You just lost to a better team. So, hey, stop with the Jalen Hurts discrediting. And look, he's top 10, at least top 10. So let it go. Whatever narrative that y'all trying to pull out of whichever way, it's time for that to stop. He solidified himself. He's won the Super Bowl. The great team that he has around him, that's what he's supposed to have. That's what he's supposed to have. Let's stop trying to discredit people because, oh, guess what? Our quarterback didn't win. Because every time Justin Herbert does not get to a Super Bowl, what do we say? Well, he doesn't have a good team around him. When Lamar Jackson was not able to get to a Super Bowl because he didn't have the receivers, right? But he doesn't have the great receivers around him. Okay, Jalen Hurts has all that. He won and won with what was given to him. So stop all of these false narratives because someone is not your cup of tea.
All right, comment from Chosen League. Shout out to Chosen League. Glad the Eagles got the W in the Super Bowl. Eagles showed that they were capable of beating a team that's potentially going to become a dynasty. But, Champ, this is the problem that I have with you with this argument. And, again, this is not a knock on Jalen Hurts. But I am getting tired of people saying, well, because he won a Super Bowl, now all of a sudden he's elite. If you want to make an argument Jalen Hurts is a top 10 quarterback and that he's a good enough quarterback that you can build around and win you games in a Super Bowl, fine with that. But if you think after that Super Bowl victory, all of a sudden that's going to make me say he's elite, you out your damn mind. No, Champ, I'm gonna be honest because I'm getting tired of it. Because just because you won a Super Bowl, all of a sudden that makes you elite. Well, Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. He still has ways to go, but he has a Super Bowl. So let's give him his due. But just because he's won a Super Bowl doesn't necessarily mean I'm going to put him above Burrow or Lamar. Because I was listening to Reels Talk with MJ on Trent's podcast. Shout out to Trent. And he was trying to make an argument for Jalen Hurts top 2.
Nah.
No. If I can go real quick, PSP.
Go ahead.
I would never say that he's elite. Now, is he in elite company for slaying the dragon? Yes. Is he top 10? Yes. But at the end of the day, I'm still picking one of the other guys before I pick Jalen Hurts.
And that's all I'm saying.
I'm still picking the other guys. But the fact of the matter is, I can understand you not saying that he's elite. The problem I have with, and this is not an indictment on you, the problem I have with some of the media is they're saying, well, he had a great team. So did Peyton Manning. He had Hall of Famers on his team. What was your knock on him? When the problem is when other people did it and they had great teams, it was like, okay, they slayed the dragon, just like I said it earlier. But with Jalen Hurts, well, it's because he had a great team around him. That's what he's supposed to have. Now, I'm not going to be foolish enough to put him in Lamar Jackson company and stuff like that, as far as talent wise and throwing motion and things of that nature, and the
Which
way
is
he's
why,
able.
which is why I'm not talking about you. This is not
Yeah,
an indictment on you. I just have
yeah,
a problem with some in the media and the public saying, "Well, because Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl, now all of a sudden he's elite." My thing is, no, he won a Super Bowl. Give him his credit. Give him his due. Considering for a quarterback, mind you, when he came into college, I don't think any NFL scout or GM wanted him to play quarterback because they weren't so sold on him as quarterback. Kind of like with Lamar Jackson.
yeah.
I picked the Eagles to win the Super Bowl
Mm-hmm.
only because they were the better team. Fellas, I'm going to be real with you. After the first drive of the second half, I stopped watching the Super Bowl. I stopped watching it. I'm like, really? This is the best type of performance you're going to give me on the biggest stage? F this. I'm watching Netflix. I'm watching Hulu. I'm watching WWE Legends. I'm watching The Dark Side of the Ring. I'm going to spend my time watching some stuff. Matter of fact, I got so disgusted with the game and I was sick at the same time. I'm like, you know what, boss, I love you. I respect you. I need to take some time off from work to process what I had to witness in that Super Bowl. That's how bad that Super Bowl was for me. I'm disgusted. Yeah, it sounds like to me I'm being salty because I can't stand dumb, annoying, obnoxious Eagles fans. This has nothing to do with Broad or Dennis or any other Eagles fan who I have mad respect for. Congratulations to the Eagles for winning the Super Bowl. But some of y'all Eagles fans, y'all getting on my nerves, man. To the point where I'm just like, F y'all, I'm gonna go chill. I'm gonna watch Netflix and stuff like that. As it pertains to the game, this to me, y'all talk about the Super Bowl against the Buccaneers. No, this is about as bad as Seattle versus Denver. That's
That's
how
fair.
bad it was for the Chiefs. That's how bad it was for Patrick Mahomes. I'm like, okay, Mahomes, at some point, when are you going to when are you going to turn it around? This is a golden opportunity for you to become the GOAT. To some people, and by the way, and for other people who say that Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT conversation, it's over because he lost the Super Bowl. Newsflash, people, he's 29 years old. He's got 10 years left. So, champ, myself, BRF said, even if he won the Super Bowl, even if he three-peated, we still didn't have Mahomes as the GOAT. So let's calm down. Let's pipe the break. Give credit to the Eagles, their defense. Let's also give another guy that we have criticized, Nick Sirianni, because he's been receiving a lot of criticism as far as his strategies and things of that nature. Let's give him his due. He played well. It came down to coaching. If the game get close, it all comes down to coaching. Who would you rather trust? Would you rather trust Nick Sirianni or would you rather trust Andy Reid? All of us, it was unanimous, Andy Reid, because of his experience. Nick Sirianni, hey, he coached and he coached well. I gotta look at I'm looking at this from a standpoint as a Washington Commanders fan. Even though I am disgusted that the Eagles won, compared to the Chiefs, I gotta be honest with you, Washington didn't even play that bad compared to Kansas City. Mind you, when we had a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who looked better than Patrick Mahomes. That's what looks so bad for Kansas City because yes, you were the favorites. You've had experience going up against this team. Patrick Mahomes, prior to the Super Bowl, you were 8-0 going up against Vic Fangio's defense. And you wet the bed in that game. You played awful. It was just that bad. It was just as bad as Seattle versus Denver. I mean, it was 34 nothing at one point. I'm like, really? Turn off the TV. I'm watching Netflix. Hell, I was watching the Kardashians, to be honest with you, because I need to have some level of entertainment. And you give me this Super Bowl performance. No, I ain't watching this.
I'll I'll
I'm,
I'll
I'm sorry.
say I'll say this real quick. Um, I don't I don't quite put this on the level of Seattle Denver. And the reason why I don't put this quite at the level of Seattle Denver is the history that Denver offense made that year. That Denver offense was breaking record after record after record after record after record. If I'm not mistaken, that's the year Peyton Manning set the touchdown record with 55. Am I correct?
Yes, he did.
55 touchdowns.
I'm talking BRF. I'm talking about if this was a typical BTA game, that is what you saw last Sunday.
I get what you saying, but I'm looking at it. I get what you saying, but from an historic level, as far as what Denver was doing and how nobody gave Seattle a shot in that game, and how Seattle just took like one of the arguably top five offenses, single season offenses in the history of football, and basically just say, hey, we don't care. We gonna do what we do, and we gonna destroy you from minute one to the last minute of the game. From I'm talking like from a historic level, I don't put this one there because there was like history in that game. Like Seattle took Denver, who was just basically destroying anybody offensively you put in front of them, and just like that game was done at halftime. I mean, as far as like Denver being the type of offense they were, Kansas City's offense this year was nowhere near as good as what that Denver offense was this year. I think we look at this game from the standpoint of what Patrick Mahomes could potentially do had he won this game, and Philly just didn't give a damn. I'm looking at it from the standpoint why I say Super Bowl 55 is because we've seen this before. That's why I kind of put it with Super Bowl 55. It was that was like a rerun of Super Bowl 55. It's like you took the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you changed uniforms, you get the Philadelphia Eagles, and it was almost like the exact thing. Patrick Mahomes running for his life pretty much the first 3 quarters of the game until Philly decided to let off the gas and just let Patrick Mahomes get a little bit in crunch time because almost like in garbage time because it was like, what more do we need to do? The game over with. We got nothing else to prove. The game over. I don't care how good Patrick Mahomes is. He ain't that good to come out from 34 point down. I don't care how good he is. So it was man. I honestly though I watched the whole game because honestly it was nothing else on TV for me to watch for me. So I just watched the whole game but I'm just looking at it. I'm just like, damn. Whew. Patrick Mahomes, you are not a Super Bowl performing quarterback, my guy. You got two ugly performances in the Super Bowl, and none of your performances in the Super Bowl were really that spectacular. Or we could be like, man, you showed up that day. The only game he really had that was like, man,
You
he
gotta,
showed out
you
was
gotta,
probably
you gotta,
last year.
you gotta pass the first Super Bowl that he lost because even though it was 31-9, people will still look at some of the amazing throws that he made in that game. I It was no surprise that Tampa won because, to quote Champ, quarterback cannot throw behind his back. And but Kansas City's offensive line wasn't as decimated as that old line back then in 2020.
Mm-mm,
And for
mm-mm.
you to get embarrassed like that, albeit against the Eagles front line, you talk about BTA, talk about a game like that. Man, I didn't even watch the halftime performance. I didn't even see Serena Williams crip walking. We'll get into that later on in the show. I was like, this is the best. This is the best game y'all gonna give me. Fine. Let me watch Dark Side of the Ring. Let me watch the Kardashians. Let me watch Love and Hip Hop, Real Housewives of Atlanta. Let me find some level of entertainment just to get me through the night before I go to work because how can you leave me on a Sunday night to watch this level of garbage? I'm sorry. I mean, maybe I'm being petty, I'm being salty, but this is not the type of Super Bowl that I anticipated. I don't blame the Eagles because they handled their business. You can't knock the Eagles for handling their business. They came in, Jalen Hurts. Look, do I think this performance makes him elite? No. What it shows you, however, is that this is the type of quarterback Philadelphia is more than proud to have. Because, champ, you stole my thunder. They had Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz was supposed to be their guy. Had it not been for injury in his second year, Carson Wentz would have won the league MVP. But he got hurt. Nick Foles ended up taking over for the team, winning the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz was supposed to be that guy, and they drafted Jalen Hurts because they couldn't trust Carson Wentz, whether mentally, physically, whatever the case may be. They decided to move on from Carson Wentz, go to Jalen Hurts. And yes, champ, to your point, Jalen Hurts is a winner. Jalen Hurts has intangibles. The beauty of it for the Eagles, Saquon Barkley wasn't even that much of a factor in that game, and they beat them hands down. That's
Yeah.
what makes it even more bad for Kansas City. And Steve Spagnuolo, other than stopping the run, there was nothing that you can do to stop the Eagles' offense. Trent McDuffie made some dumb penalties as well. I mean, even when Kansas City had chances, it was like they shot themselves in the foot. It was like Champ going off his diet. 1 minute he's going on Nutrisystem, eating all them good foods, and then all of a sudden he's at Magic City eating wings and thighs. And the next thing you know, he was at Popeyes having that Don Julio sandwich with the drink as well. That's how bad it was for Kansas City. I mean, hell, that's like me. You probably saw me at the liquor store. One day I go from drinking orange juice and coffee, and the next minute you see me at the liquor store having 3, 4 Serranos with some Angry Orchards. That's how bad it was for Kansas City that day.
Damn. I can't stop laughing. Good God. Oh, wow. Well, that's amazing.
No,
Champ, I'm gonna let y'all get these couple of minutes. I'm gonna put my face in my shirt because I don't know how to show myself after that one.
Hey man, Professor Clump is in the building, people. But Professor Clump is in the building. Look, I'm gonna just be real, man. That Super Bowl reminded me a lot of what New England did against the Chicago Bears back in Super Bowl 20 when they honed in on Walter Payton. And they just couldn't stop the rest of the offense. And then what we did in 1998 with the Denver Broncos. Yeah, you did a hell of a job with, stopping the run. You did good job. But you just couldn't stop the rest of the team. And you depended on Jalen Hurts in order to beat you. And he did. And look, man, like I said, Jalen Hurts is a winner. Now, granted, I'm not going to put him in conversations where he doesn't belong, but he did submit himself for being in top 10 conversation. Can't leave him out anymore. They have a lot of work to do as far as in Kansas City. Not to mention they're in cap hell this coming year because 6 of their players is taking up 63% of their salary.
And one of them is Kelsey.
Yes. And he has until March the 14th to make a decision of whether he's going to come back or retire because they're probably looking at drafting another tight end. So, I mean, you got to think about a lot of things, and you got to think about how long this core of players is going to last. So, and yeah,
I still think Kansas City will still compete because the bottom line, champ, is Baltimore, Buffalo, all these teams, and still they can't knock off Kansas City. Now, I don't see Kansas City doing it all for the long term, but they're still going to be the team to come out.
Yeah, but you got to think about this. Now, you don't have that distinct advantage of just running through your division anymore because these teams are only going to get better. You got 4 Super Bowl caliber coaches in your division. So you're not going to be just running through that division like you've done previous years when this division was just mediocre. This year showed us that because there was a lot of close games within that division. So you're not going to have that advantage anymore. When you really look at a lot of other Super Bowl champions outside of, I will say, the Green Bay Packers, a lot of them had relatively weak divisions. When you think about the Cowboys doing their run started happening on the tail end of the Washington Commanders run and, the New York Giants run. They happened on the tail end of those runs. When you think about Tom Brady's run, you think about how weak the AFC East was, with the exception of a couple of years when they actually had Mark Sanchez in that division with that defense. When you think about that, when you think about the the AFC South, after Steve McNair left in 2005, there was pretty much years where Peyton was unscathed in that division. He was sweeping that division pretty much every year. So when you think about a lot of those divisions when these guys had dynasties, it was pretty much a very, very weak division. And so when you think about this division that's coming up, we all know Jim Harbaugh is a championship coach. He won one in college with Blake Corum and J.J. McCarthy, and he went to a Super Bowl with Colin Kaepernick. So we know what he's capable of. When you talk about Pete Carroll, he's going to two Super Bowls. Granted, we don't know how long he's going to be there. If he's just there for the rebuild projects and just say, okay, we've got this in place, now it's time for me to move on, or if he's going to be there for the long haul. But either way, he is a Super Bowl winning coach, not to mention the GOAT himself is overseeing that team. He knows how to win. Then you have Sean Payton and that defense and Bo Nix. If it had not been for the great Jaden Daniels being as good as he is and going to the NFC Championship and leading that team pretty much out of hell at a certain point, then Bo Nix would have been the Rookie of the Year. So I just have to say, hey, you're going to be in contention, but it's not going to be as easy as it once was in previous years. And I believe that this year, because 3 teams made it out of that AFC West division and made it to the playoffs.
Yes.
3. And so that's becoming another blood and guts division, much like the NFC North and the AFC North. So you gotta watch yourself a little bit more, because now you got to worry about that Super Bowl hangover. Because it hurts. I mean, no matter how much you try to fight it, it hurts everybody. That Super Bowl hangover, it's gonna hurt you one way or another. So you got a lot to worry about this coming years. You got to worry about the competition within your division. You got to worry about cap hell, these guys within contracts. And guess what? These teams that you face are only going to get better, because guess what? You got to ask yourself this. What if the San Francisco 49ers say this during the offseason? Okay, we saw how you beat them. 2 guys are available in the offseason. Joey Bosa and Myles Garrett. So what if they follow their blueprint and say, we need some help up front so we don't have to blitz?
But here's
what if they say we need to go get Myles Garrett?
But
what if they say we need to go get Joey Bosa?
But here's the thing, champ. And the reason why I'm reluctant with those 3 teams, first of all, you look at the Raiders, they're in a reclamation process. So it's going to take them some time. Plus, your point with Pete Carroll, how long does it have left in the tank? Yes, Brady is overseeing things, but still, how long does Pete Carroll have left? Then you look at Denver. Okay, good defense, but this is your first time you've been to the playoffs since 2015. And with the Chargers, I like Justin Herbert, but boy, you have a lot to prove after that playoff performance against Houston. And we've seen you go toe-to-toe against Mahomes. So when I look at the AFC West, Kansas City is still going to win that division, because if you put me on a lie detector test, I still believe they're still the better team. However, with the AFC, that's going to be a problem, because you still can't discount Buffalo. You still can't deny Baltimore. I hope for Baltimore they make it to come out of the AFC. Considering how the way that they lost in that playoff game, and considering how frustrating it was for Lamar, I hope that Lamar pulls it off. But still, at the end of the day, as long as Mahomes and Reed, and I think this is a great thing for Kansas City because guess what? You're gonna give them a reason to prove something. Andy Reid, if he had won another Super Bowl, he ain't going anywhere. That's the thing too. He is not going anywhere. What Kansas City they're gonna have to do, they're gonna have to address some of the offensive line. And yeah, to the cap situation, that's going to be a problem. But I still and they're gonna have to get Travis Kelce's successor. They're gonna have to get Travis Kelce's successor. They're gonna have to get a tight end. Kelsey, we appreciate everything you've done, but it's time for us to move on. So they got to get Mahomes some more weapons to work with. It can't just be the types of guys. Heck, if your kid's is City, I still believe you're still going to be one of the teams to come out in the AFC as long as Mahomes and Reed and Chris Jones are there. Steve Spagnuolo is still going to be there. So you're going to have to ask players to make some sacrifices. You're going to have to ask them whether to take pay cuts or not, with some players or not. And I just think, though, when you look at the AFC, they're still going to be the team to come out. We talk about Joe Burrow all the time. Matter of fact, you made the argument. If he loses both T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, if I'm Joe Burrow, I retire. You look at Pittsburgh, they're still consistent. They make the playoffs. But Mike Tomlin, and again, you still don't know about a quarterback situation. Bo Nix, I believe Denver's going to take a next step up because this is the first time you've had a competent quarterback for a while since Peyton Manning. So I expect you to go nowhere but up. Justin Herbert, I still believe the talent is there. And what do we know about Jim Harbaugh? He provides defense from San Francisco to Michigan. And now the Chargers had the best defense in the NFL. But still, under those circumstances, you couldn't get the job done. Plus, we can't ignore the Houston Texans because they've also had injuries as well. Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs. I don't know what they're going to do with that, but I do believe CJ Stroud will have a better year. But I still believe Kansas City is still going to be the team because I trust the organization from the Hunt family. They're going to do some things, whether from the draft, they're going to have to convince players to take some pay cuts because, again, they're trying to take the Patriots approach. So I believe that Kansas City, they're going to have struggles. They're definitely going to have a Super Bowl hangover, but I still believe that the future is still bright for them as far as competing for Super Bowls. I don't think by this loss in that Super Bowl champ, it's over for them to not capture another Super Bowl. That is where I disagree with.
I don't, like I said, I don't think that they're done winning Super Bowls. I would be a fool to believe that. But I think it's going to be a little bit rougher. It's
I
not
agree
going to
there.
be as smooth as it was. It's not going to be as smooth. It's not going to be these dominating performances that we're used to seeing. As time went on, we saw that with the Patriots as well. It wasn't, they was winning, but it wasn't as smooth. Patriots in the first couple of years, it was smooth. As time progressed, it got a hell of a lot harder, especially when you got to the playoffs. Because they were playing some hellified teams. But when I think about that division and I think about the coaching in that division, I think this coaching is up to par with an Andy Reid. They've seen it all. They've done it all before. And they're going to be able to, and on some days, out-coach Andy Reid because they've been through it all and seen it all. Like I said, these coaches have either been to Super Bowl. I mean, for Pete Carroll, Super Bowl and national championships. Same thing with Jim. So it's not going to be as smooth as they're building up those teams. These teams are going to get better in their offseason. They're going to be able to address needs. And you have to think about this. Regardless of what he went through in only his second playoff game, this was only his second playoff game in the form of Justin Herbert. His first year in Jim Harbaugh's system. So it's really going to be interesting to see how he turns it all around within his second year. And like I said, and like you stated, all these other teams in the AFC, Lamar Jackson, those guys, they just re-signed Todd Monken. Wish you wouldn't have signed him so we could have got him back, but I got back in Georgia, but I digress. But these teams have gotten better. They're going to get better. And I don't think it's going to be as smooth as it previously was. Like I said, when you usually see dynasties, you usually see a lot of teams moving very, very smoothly out of their division. I don't think in the coming years, especially now that you got hellified head coaching within that division, that it's going to be as smooth. Now, are they still going to be a hellified team? Yes, they are, but it's not going to be as smooth sailing as it once was. So that's just the gist of it where I stand right about now. And he's going to have to get used to this second crop of players that's coming in, because much like with Brady, these first crop of players is leaving. Travis Kelce, the guy who you have the most chemistry with, he's gone. Now we saw what you could do with Xavier Worthy. Now what are you going to do when Rashee Rice comes back?
I think he'll be fine.
Are you going to still have the same chemistry as he did? Is he going to be a step slower? Who's going to be your number one receiver? How are you going to be able to build chemistry with this new tight end that you have, which has seemingly been, quote unquote, your BFF the entire time?
Well, here's a suggestion. Bring back Eric Bieniemy. Bring back EB.
Well, EB is already I think he has a job with Chicago, BRF.
Oh wait, yeah, he's the running back.
Yeah, running backs coach with the Bears.
Yeah, he's with Chicago right now. So,
but if you could get an offensive coordinator, but the thing is with Andy, I still trust Andy as far as with the play calling and stuff like that. Patrick Mahomes, I believe he'll be fine with the talent that he works with, because obviously you're going to play with a generational type of quarterback like him. He's just going to find ways to get the ball. It was just shocking to me, champ. And again, it's no shame, because again, it was the Eagles D line. But Kansas City, the second time in the Super Bowl, their offensive line, they got exposed badly, and they got beat down badly. And I just wanted to see a better performance. I'm like, where's your heart? Where's your pride? Okay, fine. You may not win the Super Bowl, but at least show me something. And in that Super Bowl, it just looked like somebody just ripped their heart out of their chest.
They did. The Philadelphia Eagles did. They did.
If you really look at this Super Bowl, it's something about these coordination games. This is going to be the Super Bowl to coordinate somebody. It seems like the offensive line always have a hard time doing these quote unquote coordination games. This is supposed to be the game where he's supposed to be the greatest of all time. Remember the undefeated season? Season that New England Patriots had? That was supposed to be the coordination of them to be the greatest dynasty of all time. Look what happened. Where did they get beat at? In the trenches. In the trenches.
It happens. I get it.
They got beat in the trenches. And battles, the game of football is won and lost in the trenches. And so, yeah, I mean, we saw guys, although that one, it was not as, much as a BTA as this one, we've seen offensive line get dominated before. We've seen it. And the thing is, when your offensive line and when you're losing battles in the trenches, it's only a matter of time before the rest of it falls. And this just proves my point, as I like to say always, me being a big man, me being a big guy. Quarterback might be the most important position on that team, but the most valuable position on that team is that offensive line. Because like I say all the time, and you quoted me earlier, quarterback can't throw on his back. And where was Patrick Mahomes at the whole time? On his back. Offensive line is the only position where everybody being better is predicated upon you. And nobody else's performances affect you. You can have the greatest wide receiver. You can have Jerry Rice, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Emmitt Smith, and Tom Brady in that backfield. You give them a lackluster offensive line, I guarantee you ain't going nowhere. So that proves my point. Quarterback might be the most important, but the most valuable position on that team is that offensive line. And when they have bad games and when they're not available, as we saw in Patrick Mahomes' first Super Bowl, when he played against Brady, it shows every single time. It shows. I don't believe they're done winning Super Bowls as of yet, but like I said, it's not going to be as smooth as it was before. But I'll be a fool to believe that this is going to be the last one. No, as long as Andy Reid is on that field, and you got that organization in place the way it is, it's going to be a good one. And the Chiefs, I know the world just now figured this out. I know the world just not figured this out. But the Chiefs has always been a hell of an organization. Look at the players that have come through there. Derek Thomas, Steve Bono, Priest Holmes, Trent Green.
Tony Gonzalez.
Yes. So the Chiefs have always, and then, Doug Peterson, him being the general manager of that team back in the day with Marty Schottenheimer in that team. And let's not forget Neil Smith. So they've always been a hell of an organization. They've always been an organization with talent, even before Andy Reid. So this is one hell of an organization. They just didn't have the Super Bowls to back them up. So this has always been a hell of an organization. They just gonna have to work a little bit harder in order to get another Super Bowl, because guess what? A lot of things is going to get ready to come at you and fall apart within that organization as far as players that you're going to have to get rid of pretty soon.
But I still believe that the Chiefs have the future. Like you always, in the words of Ric Flair, champ, to be the man, you got to beat the man. The Eagles were the man in that Super Bowl in that day, and they deserve every bit of it. But as far as saying that it's over for Kansas City, as far as competing for Super Bowls, let's not go that far. That's all I'm saying.
That's just like saying that I'm done eating KFC. That ain't gonna never be over.
You could have used Churches. You could have used Popeyes.
We'll go with Popeyes. We're gonna go with Churches. The bag too greasy. You know what I'm talking about?
So. I had chicken for dinner, man. After I got off of work, man, I'm done thinking about chicken right now.